We have two different versions of the Water Princess, which you all also chose for this week. And the Water Princess is read twice because the reader here talks about how this relates to her own experience and water shortages in her life in her native country. And think about what is the difference of having these two different readings. How could this impact the child viewer, the child listener, and why is this important? So, along with that, let's again think about images because the images here are so powerful. The topic is incredibly bleak. It is a dire water shortage, and it is the child protagonist living without enough access to clean water. That's just an unimaginable reality for me. I don't know about you, but I've always had enough water. Even during droughts, we still had enough water to drink. This child does not. But how do these images still empower the child viewer in these very dangerous circumstances? Look at the child's body language. Look at the child's relationship to the nature around them, as well as to the community. Even when the water talks, even when the text talks about the child not being able to call the water to themselves, it's still a powerful image. This child, little girl, is standing up. And this is commanding movement. It's a powerful movement. It's not a image where the child is pleading or looks weak, even as they're talking about something they can't do. And here, this long procession to get water, we see the little girl is with an entire community. All of them are doing this together. It's a communal activity. And here, the child is in a nurturing and loving family. So even as the natural landscape seems bleak and threatening, the child is supported by the people around her. Once again, how does that work to send a message of hope to the child viewer who's going to identify with the protagonist here? Think about that as you think about how this story is sending a message that is at once powerful and frightening, but empowering at the same time. And this is set in Africa, but this is a global reality that we all share. In fact, over at the top of this, I have a story that our author, Arthur Fawcett, Jessie Fawcett's brother, is a huge mover and shaker in the Harlem Renaissance, collected from this region, the Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky region, Virginia, all these areas in Appalachia. He collected it in the 1920s when this area was facing a historic drought that was so severe it killed off a lot of forest areas in this region. And in this story, it talks about water rights. Usually Tar Baby stories are about food rights, but this is about water rights. And so this narrative about water and lack of access to water is a shared narrative that circumnavigates the globe. So, as we are looking at it today, you can also look at these texts today about water and water shortages, both in the American West and then here in the Appalachian region. How do we negotiate the gap between this extremely realistic fiction and the current realities of our potential students? Whether these students are in libraries and classrooms, are in our homes, how do we reach them? And how do we reach them in ways that are empowering? Because here in Learning Appalachia, my time teaching in coal country, we have a TED Talk. And specifically, if you look at minutes 3 to about 4, that gap on the YouTube video, The teacher talks about how the assessment of a professional about this area where he's teaching got different reactions from students, and why it was so important to be both realistic and yet hopeful when working with these students. So think about these things as you are going to be moving on and creating a unit or creating some questions and an activity in connection with One Well, the story of water on Earth.